Let's have a great time. Thank you. There you go, David.
Great. Thanks, Zulema, and welcome everybody. Boa tarde, as people are saying in the chat. I'm David Bank. I'm the editor of Impact Alpha. It's great to see so many folks on the call, both old friends and a bunch of new people. And we've been pushing our Latin America edition, as Zulema mentioned, and I'm glad to see that we're starting to get some good pickup in Latin America and in Brazil. Folks who've been on this call know that now would be the time to start introducing yourselves on the chat. The key is, obviously your name and possibly your organization, if you like, but also where you're coming from geographically, as well as other ways, and for this purposes of this, any connection you might have to Brazil and Latin America more broadly. So let's let the guests see who's with us on the call. Just one note, we'll have a mix, mostly in English, but a little bit of Portuguese as well, and we'll try to manage the translations, and if you want to ask questions in either language, we will be able to take care of that, we hope. But bear with us as we work through this. Let me first bring in my colleague Dennis Price, who's been leading our LATAM effort. Hi, Dennis.
Hi, David, and welcome everyone.
And maybe set us up, Dennis. You've been doing most of the prep work here and most of the reporting for the call.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we are digging in on Latin America, and we cover impact investing around the world. But the energy coming out of Brazil is tremendous. And I want to give a shout out to Aliança pelo Impacto, which is Brazil's national advisory board for impact investing. There's a number of boards around the world. And this is Brazil's, and the team, we have Ricardo Ramos here and Victoria on the call, have just been tremendous in helping us navigate Brazil's ecosystem, connect us with the leaders, understand the trends, and help pull this call together today. So just appreciate it, and we think there's just tremendous value in this market.
Well, let's introduce the guests, and starting with Ricardo. Welcome. You're on mute. This is everybody should take themselves off mute. This is the bane of Zoom calls.
Hi, David. Hi, Dennis. Hi, Zulema, and everyone else, the guests from Brazil and everyone watching us today. I'm Ricardo Ramos, Executive Director of Aliança pelo Impacto. As mentioned, the national partner of GSG Impact in Brazil. And I'm really proud to be here today, to have these amazing guests, and to have this beautiful partnership that we are building between Aliança and Impact Alpha in these last 2 years. So thank you very much, Dennis, Zulema, and David, for that.
Beautiful, thank you. And we'll come back in 1 second, Ricardo, but let's just say hello to everybody else. And again, apologies if I mangle the pronunciation. Apologies in advance. But Giselle Viana from the Ministry of Development, Industry, and Foreign Commerce. Welcome, Giselle.
Hi, everyone. It's a great honor to be here. And thank you, David, for doing the hard part of my job, which is to pronounce the name of my ministry, the whole thing. So I work for this ministry. We have here a Green Economy Secretary, and I am the general coordinator for Green and Impact Economy. So I'm very thrilled. Today we run the National Strategy for Economic Impact together with Ricardo, Vittoria, and all these wonderful guests. So it's a great pleasure, and
great.
Congrats for the event. Yeah,
and we're gonna dig into that in just a second. And Adriana Barbosa, and this is the Fera Preta, is that close enough?
Yes.
You say it.
Hello.
Welcome.
I'm speaking Portuguese, okay?
Yes.
Eu sou Adriana Barbosa, sou aqui do Brasil, da cidade de São Paulo, e atuo com um ecossistema vocacionado para o empreendedorismo negro no Brasil e também em alguns países da América Latina.
Awesome. I'm gonna translate Adriana's statement. She's Adriana Barbosa, founder of Feira Preta, a company, a hub that promotes Black entrepreneurs here in Brazil and probably all around the world in a few years.
Great, thank you. And welcome. And Fernanda Camargo of Right Capital in Sao Paulo. Welcome, Fernanda.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. And I'm one of the co-founders of Right Capital. We are a multifamily office, and we've been, only talking with clients who care about social or environmental, issues. And we've been investing in impact, part of the portfolio since we started. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Great, thank you for joining us. And Fabio Aperovich, also in Sao Paulo, with Fama Capital. Welcome, Fabio.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for setting up this call. Very important to have this discussion about Brazil. My name is Fabio Aperovich. I've been doing responsible investments since 1993. There was no name, ESG, the acronym is from 2004, 2005. And so recently we moved to impact investing rather than ESG only. Besides Fama, I have been doing a lot in NGOs. So I have already founded 4 NGOs and I'm currently serving to several boards, including WWF in Brazil, Ethos Institute, which is a large institute in Brazil, and some other related to social or environmental issues.
Great, Fabio, we were wondering after our call the other day how you find the time for doing wearing so many different hats, but we're gonna get into that discussion. But let's just go back to Ricardo and the Alliance for a little bit of an introduction. Ricardo, we've been struck by how diverse and vibrant the Brazil impact ecosystem is. The Alliance, I think, has been helpful in pulling that all together. The context, a little bit of the hook for this call has been COP30. I know Brazil also had the G20 presidency for the last year. But just give us the broad strokes of what the opportunity is for both impact and climate and for investors in Brazil.
Sure, David. I'll give just a quick step back before jumping into your question, because I really want to also express my gratitude for having Victoria here, because she's the person in Aliança responsible for making all this happen on our side. So thank you very much, Victoria, for everything you are doing. And just to introduce to everyone else who still don't know about Aliança. Aliança is a backbone organization that for 11 years now is working to foster, connect, and represent the Brazilian economy locally and globally. We work with and for entrepreneurs, enablers like Adriana, that you're gonna watch and listen in a few minutes, like with regulators like Giselle, and with capital suppliers like Fernanda and Fabio that are here today, a great sample of the leaders that you can meet in the Brazilian vibrant ecosystem, okay? And we also partner with the GSG Impact and its network of over 50 countries. Well, getting to your question, David, I'll be brief because I think most of it and what is happening is going to be brought by Dan later on. But honestly, I would start saying that I'm really, really excited with what is happening in Brazil and having Brazil in the spotlight now since last year, honestly, because we hosted G20 and now we have COP30 and the BRICS presidency. I think this is especially important because we've been covering and participating. We even met in some international events and discussions. And we see that it's shocking to see that Brazil and emerging economies in general are still underrepresented and overlooked. So therefore, having a global South country in the lead is an opportunity to raise and highlight topics that are often ignored and neglected. The impact investing figures are a very good demonstration of it. Well, despite more than 50% of the rainforests are in Latin America, being one of the most biodiverse regions on the planet, and still facing severe social challenges, Latin America accounts for only 1% of the impact assets under management globally. Well, in times when the need of collaboration should be emphasized, and understanding that we live in a world where things are interconnected, it's important. Brazil has the opportunity now to show its innovative impact economy ecosystem, offering solutions that will benefit not only the country, but the region and the whole world. I would say that Brazil will serve as a powerful example of the potential that EMDs have and highlights the need for true inclusion, because no one can be left behind on that. And finally, what is happening in Brazil, just a bit taste before handing them back to you and listening to the other guests. In Brazil, we have a national strategy for the impact economy, targeting to tenfold the market size by 2032. We have our largest development bank, BNDES, and the National Treasury, mobilizing private capital, and we are talking about billions of dollars to impact, obviously. And in a recent study, on a sample that we had from the market, we found more than 30 financial institutions and organizations offering impact investing opportunities in Brazil. So yes, we have a lot to show you, to start today and to show to the world, I would say. So my last words here in this moment, David, Dennis, and Zulema, again, thank you for the invitation, is to invite everyone watching us now or later on to have a closer look at Brazil. And I would also offer myself and Aliança to be at your service to connect whoever owns a need to get in contact with Brazil to present the Brazilian ecosystem. So thank you for the opportunity, and let's listen to the other amazing guests we have.
Appreciate that, Ricardo. Thank you for the sort of landscape view and teeing up what is a big opportunity, seemingly big opportunity in Brazil. Giselle, let's dig in. Ricardo mentioned an Impacto, the National Impact Economic Strategy, which has lots of buzz, you know, as governments and companies are sort of around the world are retreating on some level. Brazil's digging in, and not only framing up impact as a strategy for doing good from a government level, but actually essential to economic growth. So that's a big claim. How are you think about impact and inclusion and climate as keys to economic growth?
Wow, this is a great question. Hi, everyone. So as I was telling you earlier, this is a very, very exciting moment for Brazil and for the world in terms of how we have to unite, and like Ricardo said, and this is what we're doing here in Brazil. So I'd like also to make this point that Brazil, of course, is this green, is this leader in a green economy. And renewable energy, but also Brazil has to be seen as this leader on regulation and on governance. So this is what we're doing here. So we have this national strategy on impact economy that has been there for more than 7 years, and it crossed different governments with different ideologies. So it's a very resilient policy that has this power to unite different fields, different sectors, different regions of Brazil, different groups, underrepresented groups are in there participating and voicing their needs and their visions, and also with a great link with the innovation ecosystem, which is something we want to stress and deepen during this year. So this is a very strong policy that has been has been the platform for many actions in Brazil. So we have this strategy. We have a committee, which is the governance of the strategy, with more than 60 different entities, public and private. So civil society is present there. All the sectors are represented by organizations there. So this is the power of our governance. So it's a this inclusion is also part of our governance, and is also our goal when we talk about entrepreneurship, and also about the impact we want to make. And now we launched last year a system, national system of impact economy. So we have the national structure, and now we have the same structure, similar structures in 4 states of Brazil. And we are expanding to more and more states. So our goal is also in 9 more years to have the committees, the legislation, and all the main actors together setting the policies for local landscape also on every state of Brazil. So this is a very exciting moment. We have 4 states that are already engaged and are working with us. So we are learning more about the local peculiarities and partnering with other actors. And also we are very focused on the international landscape, because we understand that Brazil has set the main legislation and regulatory marks for the green economy and for the impact economy. So this last 2 years have been very, very intense here at the governmental level, setting all the regulatory landscape for the impact entrepreneurship and impact investment, and everyone who works in the ecosystem to thrive. So now that we have bioeconomy strategy, circular economy strategy, offshore wind powers law set, and we have all this regulation, green transportation, and the impact economy, of course, is older, but it's also growing. So we have a very, very broad number of laws. And also we have the sustainable taxonomy that is being built in Brazil, with a very, very large group of institutions participating, and also civil society. Also, this is what I really want to state here, because inclusion is part of our governance. So we always build things together with all the institutions, and also set some instruments so the society can participate in all this building. Adriana Barbosa is here to say that they participated a lot in our strategic plan, and helped us a lot to correct some mistakes. And of course, we always make mistakes, and I have to pivot fast, and that's why it's very important, and also to hear all the voices. So yeah, so now we're at this moment. I'm sorry, I'm just saying so much because I'm very excited. And one more thing I really want to state, because I think it's a very symbolic thing, also considering the international news, right? So we were about to launch a very important program called Visto Verde. It's a fast track visa and residency permit for entrepreneurs and investors who come from abroad. Foreigners want to live in Brazil. So foreigners who want to live in Brazil, who want to reside in Brazil, to work with the green ecosystem, or investing, or in any way connecting to our ecosystem for some enterprise, we'll have a special look by our structure and our government. So I think this sets a very, very clear message to the world. And this year we're really building on this track to COP30. We want to build a very, very powerful track of really supporting all the actors involved in climate change, climate change solutions, and also bioeconomy and impact, to work with them throughout the year. So we have business roundtables and many partnerships to arrive in COP30 with a showcase of Brazilian solutions and partnerships with you guys, with whoever wants to partner with us, so we can really build these bridges and make the Brazilian Impact ecosystem more connected worldwide. So it's a lot, but I know it's a lot going on.
Giselle, that's great. I think folks, maybe more familiar with, sort of deforestation and nature issues in Brazil. Are you finding also, I know you started your career in sort of labor rights and even, ending modern day slavery. Are you finding there's also opportunities in social justice, inclusion on that side?
Oh yeah.
Investable opportunities, yeah.
Yeah, okay, this is one of the, I think, the highlights, especially at this moment, when everyone is looking at Belém and the Amazon. Yeah, like for my career, it's true. Like I've worked for 17 years and in the Ministry of Labor in Brazil, and I was coordinating the inspection of slavery, so of forced labor. And we know that environmental and social crimes are very connected. And in Brazil, for the ones that are Brazilian, but for the ones that are not familiar with this, we have in the history of contemporary slavery in Brazil, there's this region that surrounds the Amazon that is called Arco do Desmatamento, so the deforestation arch. So it's this region like that was more and more deforested to create all the bad agribusiness, right? So and of course now this has been changing a lot, also thanks to our policy on fighting social crimes and also slavery and other irregulations. But also today we see that okay, back then in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, this strip of land was where most of cases of slavery happened in Brazil. So environmental and social crimes together. And nowadays we have a very, very inspiring program. So we have a public funding that is called Arch of Restoration. So this is the narrative now, and also not only a narrative, but action taking place with funds to turn this region into a reforestation region. And this is from the government part, but also we know that the people who are there and keeping the forest alive, the indigenous people, the communities, traditional communities that have always taken care of our ecosystems are there and uniting. And what our goal, our task is to support these initiatives, to make them bigger, to scale solutions. So I see a lot of opportunities. Of course, just to give an example, we have the Center for Biobusiness in Amazon, that has been also restored and is being amplified now. So this from the governmental part, but we have a lot of partners, and we plan on expanding also our actions in the northern region of Brazil. And most of our partners that work with acceleration, incubation, and other actions, they do have on their database and on their business regularly many entrepreneurs that work with bioeconomy, nature-based solutions, and many other fields of decarbonization. Our task now is really to organize all this. We're launching also a national database that will gather all this information and also be able to cross information and make better strategic decisions. But I think the most important thing is really to build these bridges and work together, the ecosystem in Brazil, also worldwide, build these partnerships so we can really identify the gaps. We have identified many gaps, right, Ricardo? We have launched many diagnoses, mappings of our ecosystem, and now is the time when we're going to implement the solutions. And so we're very open to building partnerships and listening to you all and and see how we can improve our ecosystem and improve the impact and this scalability of our enterprises that I think there are so many and so wonderful. We just have to keep going. I think we're going in the right direction.
Thank you, Giselle. That's a great sort of segue to Fernanda. Giselle sort of teed up, some of the inequalities that exist in Brazil, like other countries. You're working with wealthy families in Brazil. Why are you seeing increased interest from wealthy families, and why are they attracted to these types of impact investment opportunities?
Thanks, Dennis. Well, first, I would say in Right Capital, it's a bit different because we set up, when we started Right Capital, the model was that any client who would come, we wanted to invest 1% of the total assets into impact. That was a way to teach families what is impact, how does it work, and people used to confuse it with philanthropy. And so we had, because it's mainly VC, we always said we have 10 years to teach, explain what's going on, connect the families. And we are now, we're going to be 10 years now. And most of the families increased the allocation. They got to understand, they're more interested. I think, not only we do the investment, and I'm also part of Impacto with the government, and I'm very proud of the work everybody's doing, and and I think the people here, all of the Brazilians are working together. This is something we do a lot, and here, besides investment, we do the asset allocation of the whole portfolio. We do the impact investment through funds. But we also do a lot of advocacy. So we get involved in helping regulation, in the board of many endowments or institutions that are helping build the ecosystem. And so this is different. I don't know many that do that. And we end up bringing the clients along. We want the clients to participate in building this. So I think this is a learning process, right? And the thing is that we've been also going through a change in generations. And the younger generation, they are inheriting a world that is more complicated. So, it's, if you live in São Paulo, your kids cannot play outside in the street. And also you would not walk around with your cell phone. So, there are, things that if we remember when we were kids, that was not true. So I think this second generation, they want to build, a better world, and they're more engaged. Although we do have the clients that are older, but also impacted. And this is, we have a lot of interest from this kind of families looking into not only social inclusion, but climate. And so I think, when we started in 2014, most of the funds that we invested in impact, they were not thematic. They had a little bit of everything: education, financial inclusion, climate. And I would say that from the last 2-3 years, the funds are moving a lot towards climate, not only because of the emergency, but because of the size of the check that is coming. And one of the biggest, the hardest time for Brazil is, how do you manage to, have the biggest investors come into this area? Because sometimes the deals are small, and the big institutions, they say, "Oh, I will not lose my time for a small check," So the transaction cost for me is one of the major things like for us, if we're gonna look into some of the nature-based or restoration, the checks will be small, and the time we spend analyzing these funds are 200 times more than a normal fund. It's more complicated. So this is, I think, when Giselle talks about data, yeah, we need data, we need taxonomy. It will make our lives easier because, as you know, things are still new. But I think, you know, we've been seeing a lot of interest towards this sector.
Well, let me just break in, Giselle, because let's get practical here. I think, as I understand it, so one of the strategies is to stand up these funds of funds that helps diversify and also maybe lower the transaction costs, as you say. So, just how do you think about that? Are there enough managers? What kinds of checks are needed? And just tell us a little bit about sort of the fundraising or the fund or the capital allocation process of these funds.
Yeah, David, in our case, it's different because we manage the wells, the 100% of the wells, and it's discretionary, right? So the way we do it, it's a percentage of the portfolio is dedicated to impact. And we need to think about risk when we do it, right? So we do have cases where families, they want to increase, but we need to go with the fiduciary duty. And so we diversify into the fund of funds, and sometimes the check per fund is not so big. But the reason is that this is a way to control risk for us, for this asset class. And one thing that we do when we invest in a fund is that we get closer, we try to help the most, we really work together. Even though, you know, the check might not be so big, I think the effort around it is.
Great.
So this is a bit different.
Last question. Are your families above the 1% now, generally speaking?
Yes, almost everyone above 2%. And there are some really above it. And some of them, they say, I want to take the risk, and that's fine. And if they understand, if they agree, we will go.
Great. Good. Thank you. Stick around for the conversation, but let's move to Adriana. Adriana, I'm so eager to get to the fair. Can you just give us a picture of like what it feels like? I know maybe Carnival is going on now or soon in Brazil, and I don't know how it compares, but just tell us what it's like.
Eu vou fazer aqui a tradução para o português, só para a gente manter o padrão. Adriana, o David perguntou sobre... ele está muito animado com a feira. A gente já fez também um conteúdo com a Impact Alpha sobre a Feira Preta, e ele queria mais entender como é que a feira funciona. Ele falou sobre o carnaval, como é que funciona, qual é a relação, existe relação?
Tá, acho que picotou aqui da Vitória. Não necessariamente tem uma relação com o carnaval. Ricardo, se a Vitória não conseguir voltar, você traduz a minha fala?
Sim, pode ficar tranquilo.
Tá bom. O que eu faço não necessariamente tem relação com o carnaval, embora o carnaval tenha eu entendo ele como um processo de riqueza, de impacto econômico também no Brasil, né, pelo tema das indústrias criativas. Mas o que eu faço o que eu desenvolvo hoje é um ecossistema de desenvolvimento de impacto econômico na população negra no Brasil e também em países da América Latina e também países africanos, em que a gente posiciona o tema da população negra enquanto empreendedora para além da lente da necessidade, da desigualdade, mas trazendo como uma estratégia de empoderamento econômico, de fomento a autonomia econômica da população negra no Brasil. O Brasil foi um dos últimos países a abolir a escravidão, o que traz o processo de desigualdade que vai refletir nos dias de hoje. Desculpa, Ricardo, é melhor você traduzir, né?
Quer que eu vá? So Adriana mentioned that not necessarily Carnival is related to Feira Preta, but actually she works closely with Latin America countries, Africa, and all of the countries trying to connect creativity industries, as well as Black entrepreneurs to like have autonomy or have economy possibilities to be part of something bigger or something huge. And Adriana mentioned that Brazil was the last country to abolish slavery. And probably she will talk about more about it later. But Feira Preta has been one of the hubs that try to rewrite the history about Black people here in Brazil.
Sim, e o que eu estava contando dessa história do processo da escravidão que traz a desigualdade, posiciona o tema da economia da população negra ainda numa perspectiva muito associada à vulnerabilidade. Então, quando a gente olha para as políticas públicas, os programas de desenvolvimento e mesmo no campo do investimento, né, um dos grandes desafios hoje é acesso a crédito. Eles ainda têm uma lente de uma população associada ao nano e ao microempreendedorismo, e não uma perspectiva de desenvolvimento estruturante mais a longo prazo. Ao mesmo tempo que ele cumpre uma função importante, o empreendedorismo negro no Brasil, ele acabou construindo um mercado de consumo também importante, porque o Brasil tem mais de 50% de população negra, são 50, quase 57%, é a maior população negra das Américas, só perde para a Nigéria, que é um país africano, então é uma população que é consumidora, mas que durante muito tempo ela não foi percebida nesse lugar de consumo. E quem começou o processo de desenvolvimento para atender a demanda dessa população foram os empreendedores negros. Mas milhares de empreendedores negros, porque no Brasil, quando a gente olha uma fatia do empreendedor que é esse micro, esse pequeno, né, associado à necessidade, a maior parte também é a população negra. Então, são milhares de empreendedores negros, mas que não conseguem quebrar o teto de vidro do micro, do pequeno.
So Adriana is telling us how difficult is the credit access when it comes to Black entrepreneurs. She told us that 50% of Brazilian citizens are recognized as Black people, and in the other side, the Black entrepreneurs are not constantly able to have money on large scale. So she mentioned that the Black community tried to sustain this market. So the Black entrepreneurship tried to have answers for the Black needies. So Feira Preta is the hub that actually tries to organize the system and try to have more access of money, of capital mobilization to this kind of entrepreneurs.
Adriana, I just wanted to ask you a follow-up to that, because if we talk about impact and inclusion being key to economic growth, that's exactly the story you just laid out. More than half the population being Black, but not having access to capital at the levels that they need, and other services. What specific ways the fair is one element of your work, but what other ways are you supporting Black entrepreneurs to plug in and grow within the broader economy?
Adriana, o Denis perguntou, ele falou muito sobre esse acesso ao crédito, né? E aí ele perguntou qual é o outro formato, ou se existe outro formato que a Feira Preta ajuda esses empreendedores a ter acesso a capital, ter acesso a essas oportunidades de mercado.
O que a gente tem feito nos últimos anos é atuar no campo da educação empreendedora, educação financeira. produção de dados, apoiar no processo da digitalização dos negócios, sobretudo pós-pandemia. E a gente também faz investimento em negócios, dinheiro que a gente capta no mercado, né, com investimento social privado, e investe nos negócios no formato de subsídio, não é VC, não é microcrédito, nenhum tipo desse sistema. Quando esses empreendedores eles conseguem atingir um nível um pouco mais desenvolvido, a gente conecta com outros fundos. Agora, o desafio do Brasil é pensar numa estrutura de crédito que olhe para as especificidades da população negra, que olhe para a desigualdade da população negra e crie soluções mais adequadas, né? Hoje, quando a gente olha o ecossistema, boa parte do recurso que tem está muito vocacionado para processos de educação, então capacitar os empreendedores. Só que não existe um desenvolvimento que não coloque esses empreendedores que foram capacitados para testar os seus negócios, para criar seus protótipos, para investir, né? Eu vejo empreendedores que quebram, mas que estão sempre recebendo recursos. Os empreendedores negros não têm nem a chance de quebrar, de testar. Então, o nível de desigualdade no Brasil é muito grande. Só para finalizar, Vitória, que eu acho importante trazer, quando a gente olha para o aspecto mais relacionado a esse tema que a gente está falando da COP, a Amazônia, ele tem mais de 70% de população afro-indígena, juntando com os pardos e negros, né? Ou seja, é uma maioria populacional também com um recorte racial, mas hoje, quando eu olho do campo do investimento, sobretudo na economia verde, você não vai ver quase não vai ver pessoas indígenas e negras liderando iniciativas de impacto com acesso a esses investimentos disponíveis no mercado. Então, precisa ser feito um trabalho sistêmico de tentar equilibrar essa desigualdade para colocar essas populações não só como público beneficiário, mas como um público que também está ali desenvolvendo as soluções que o clima precisa, né, que a Amazônia precisa.
Okay, so Adriana answered Dennis, saying that Feira Preta also works at education, data, and digitalizations from businesses. But also Feira Preta do some investments in some kind of businesses. But when these entrepreneurs have reached at some point at their businesses, Feira tries to address them for the correct capital that they need. And Adriana added a comment saying that Brazil has a challenge to understand the capital needed from the Black people. The capital is also, and a lot of capital is focused on education. But she mentioned that most of the Black people receive these educations, receive these accelerators and incubators programs and all of that, but not often they receive like the seed money and the next money that they need to achieve their goals. And Adriana also stated that 70% of people that lives in Amazon rainforest are African indigenous. I don't know if I put it right, but she mentioned that when it comes to COP, there's no much money going into this African indigenous people. So they are like people that are beneficiaries of the programs, but they're not having the capital to build their businesses and to look forward to COP and the next steps.
Great. Thank you, Victoria. And and Adriana. And I think that also makes a good segue to Fabio. And maybe it reminded me, Fabio, of the story you were telling us of and you mentioned it earlier, the shift from ESG to impact and trying to get more directly into it. I know Fama has a number of funds, but maybe you can just tell us how you saw that, how you navigated that shift, and how you're deploying capital now.
Thank you very much for the question, David. I'll start saying that I slightly disagree from my colleagues about the impact investing environment in Brazil. So as Ricardo mentioned, only 1% of the global impact investing is made in Brazil, but only 0.2% of the Brazilian investments are impact. So for Brazilians, it's even worse. And the taxonomy is yet to be made. So there are some funds that claim to be impact funds, and they're not. So despite the fact that we have huge opportunities here in Brazil and a lot of needs, there are very, very few people investing in impact. And I think that there's a misperception about risk and returns, because the traditional investors, they care about returns and they do care about risk, but they understand risk as volatility. And I wouldn't say, I don't know any traditional asset manager in Brazil that incorporates climate risk in their valuation, for example. So they are taking too much risk in their traditional investing, but they are averse of investing in impact, even though impact investing offers less risk. And these trade-offs of return, it shouldn't happen in Brazil, because we have huge opportunities here in Brazil for impact, either social or environmental, and very few people investing in. So if there are very few people investing in, the opportunities are huge, we can provide greater returns. So this is a little bit of how I see the opportunity for impact investing here in Brazil. So we are in a geography in which we can deploy a lot of capital to provide above average returns with less risk, and even Brazilians are not paying attention to that. About that shift you mentioned, this is a very personal story that I never told publicly. But in 2022, two things happened for me. First, as I said before, I've been doing ESG investing since 1993. But it was very, very difficult to talk about human rights and environmental issues with Brazilian investors. So I was labeled as communist and radical, everything, up to 2020. In 2020, everything changed. So ESG became a trending topic in Brazil. Everyone claimed that we're experts in ESG. But I understood that it was part of evolution. And so perhaps at the time, Brazilian asset managers and Brazilian investors would commit to ESG and impact investing. In 2022, everything vanished. So all the interest coming from investors, and especially asset managers, were looking for profit. So they were expecting to have inflows, and so they launched funds, but this money never came, and so they shut down all the products. So before 2020, I was a little bit anxious about the development of ESG and impact in Brazil, but I thought that investors were not committed because they didn't know about the theme. But after 2020, it was a decision. So they decided not to commit, and so everything vanished. So in one side, I saw a lot of opportunities, and Brazilians didn't want to tackle those opportunities, and no one was doing nothing, and so I had to do something. In a personal level, I had cancer in 2022, and it was very meaningful, but after the cancer, I decided to make this shift because ESG, it was the fund was we have made great achievements pushing the companies to the right direction, but it was not enough. In my personal life, I was doing much more than in my company, so I decided to do this shift. So in 2022, we started to study how to great impact, because as no one was doing, or very few people were doing that, we had to do something innovative. So just to give you some examples, we launched a climate fund that do the opposite of the traditional climate funds do. So we invest in the most polluting companies in Brazil, in Latin America, and we decarbonize the companies from inside. So we only invest in companies that have more than 1 million tons of emissions. And so we have a team comprised of multidisciplinary backgrounds, comprised of scientists, lawyers, financial guys, and so on and so forth. So we bring solutions to companies that are economically feasible. And so the companies implement the solutions to decarbonize. And so we make money out of it because the company become a better company, less risky, and as I said before, economically speaking, it's profitable. We launched a second fund to finance those who are out of the traditional financial system. So we give credit to social bioeconomy, indigenous people, quilombola, settlements, cooperatives in Brazil at a lower interest rates. So these people, when they have access to credit, is like a slavery. They pay like 3, 4, 5% a month. So it's not credit, it's slavery, financial slavery. We are about to launch venture capital to invest in companies that solve inequalities of all senses in Brazil. It's a social-driven fund, and also a fund that it's a gender fund, so to finance companies led by women or companies that commit seriously to gender equality.
Thank you, and thank you also for the reality check. We in some of the lead up to this call were saying, you know, Brazil leading on climate as COP30 approaches. I think in your experience, the interest in climate has also declined, maybe, instead of increased. So how do you see that, and will COP30 actually be an organizing point for more climate action?
I've been to many COPs in my life, and I have becoming a little bit frustrated about COPs because it's more a reunion to go online and post something in the Instagram rather than deep discussions about climate. And in Brazil, we have a tradition to make announcements about the past rather than commitments about the future. So this is a big challenge for Brazil, but we do have time to make something great here. We are in a country that should be leading the discussions about climate, not only because the Amazon, but because of the biodiversity. But we are not taking this opportunity seriously. We have to do it. We have a lot of innovation, especially in regenerative agriculture. We've been doing this for so many decades. Other geographies are still learning, so we have a lot of things to teach. However, I'm a little bit concerned about the COP not to be a stage for people trying to greenwash and just make announcements about the past.
You mentioned also, the opportunity if there's not enough capital and there's so huge opportunities and you can deliver market rate returns. What is the obstacle for investors to think like that? It seemed like you'd be you'd be flooded with interest.
I wrote an article 2 years ago, and the headline was Brazilians don't care about the climate, and international investors don't care about Brazil. So it's a little bit about that. So very, very few Brazilians understand the climate risk and the climate opportunities as well. So as I said before, I don't know any traditional asset manager in Brazil that incorporates climate risk, for example, and there are a lot of risks around. And when I go to have conversations with international investors, I see a couple of obstacles. One of that is a very few knowledge about Brazil, the Brazilian economy. They are a little bit afraid of the fluctuation of the exchange rate and so on and so forth. There are some problems regarding frameworks, because frameworks were based on the past, and so when you bring innovation, they don't fit in the frameworks. And I'm very surprised to see some interest rising in the Middle East. So 5 or 10 years ago, I would never imagine that China and the Middle East would lead the climate agenda, but it's what's happening right now. So we are talking to some potential investors in the Middle East, and they really understand that it's something that should be made to decrease their dependency on oil.
We're at the top of the hour. I think we'll go just a couple of minutes over, and I want to maybe open it up to everybody to have maybe it can be in the context of kind of a last word, but the context as I see it from this call is a vibrant ecosystem, lots of opportunity, and then as Fabio kind of reminded us, a long distance to go. And maybe if you can put it in the context of how to get from sort of from here to there, and make some kind of summation, we'll leave people with sort of a little bit of a call to action and next steps. So I don't know whether we can just go maybe back in the same order we started, and Giselle, seems like it's on your plate.
Okay, yeah, I think it's, I really read the question from Gilberto Lima on the chat, and I think it's on the same tone. I would like to respond to that. And so I think it's, we have a challenge, like Fabio said. I mean, COP30 cannot be just statements, or worse than that, just affirmation from the past, or agreements that are not made. So we have some time before us, and I think from here to November, we have to build something real, right? So this is our effort here in Brazil and in the government, in our ministry, and also in Impacto. We have been working on this since last year, just designing the best way to, the best tracks to arrive in COP30 with results, with really an impact made on the ecosystem. And not only that, now we've been working on putting together, we're gonna put together the first international business roundtable on impact of our strategy. So that's gonna be for COP30 or around it because of the logistics, but we're gonna do it in partnership with Aliança and all the other partners, all the Adriana, Fernanda, they all have been a part of the discussion, because it's been like we've been a year discussing this, and we're going to also put together national business roundtable on impact throughout the year as a preparation phase, building on this the main strategic pillars of the COP30, of the main topics. So climate change is going to be for sure, bioeconomy and other issues. So our goal now is really to build something real. So we need all the alliances we can possibly make. So it's great to be here. I'm very thankful for this opportunity to share with all of you, because from now on, we'll be looking for you, for partners, for ideas, because we really want to build bridges, to be able to structure some concrete actions so we arrive in COP30 with partnerships, with business, with more investment, and we show to the world that it's possible and that we have to make this shift. Otherwise, we'll be only waiting on the final declarations. That's not our goal.
Great. Thank you, Fernanda.
Thank you. I think I insist to be optimist, and I think that every time we need to do change in the world, we as Satish says, we want the order to change. We don't want to change ourselves. So I think if each of us do whatever, the best it can, great. I keep, when I look at people who are working at the government, like Giselle and a lot of my friends who are in the government, BNDES, the regulator, I know they're giving their lives for that, taking a lot of risk, and there's no extra bonus. And so I admire a lot, and we always put ourselves at service for that. And so what we do here is it's really try to unite and bring more people. When we get a lot of calls from foreign investors here, we bring them together, try to introduce them to Brazil. And so I think this is it. We need to do the best we can. There is Adriana was here. There is my friend from India, Sanjay, used to say that we need to learn from the trees, right? The trees give us the fruit, but they never ask us what we're going to do with the fruit. So I think this is it. We need to share knowledge, and do our best. So I insist to be optimistic.
Thank you. Adriana.
Eu quero trazer uma perspectiva também um pouco de esperança, apesar dos desafios que a gente tem, mas eu também quero fazer um chamado para ação. E o chamado para ação que eu quero fazer é uma coisa muito básica e corriqueira, mas que eu acho que pode ser um ponto-chave de preparação para a COP. Desde o ano passado eu tenho ido a eventos internacionais da COP e boa parte dos eventos que acontecem fora ou que acontecem no Brasil não há tradução. E eu acho que a tradução hoje é uma ferramenta importantíssima de comunicação e de você incluir as pessoas, incluir uma diversidade de vozes. Aqui eu estou tendo a oportunidade de ter o apoio da Vitória, do Ricardo no processo de tradução, mas tudo que for preparado para a COP, né, agora ao longo desse ano, o ecossistema precisa trazer investimento para a tradução, para que essa tradução incluam outras pessoas e elas façam parte dessa conversa. A gente está precisando trazer diversidade para a conversa, não só para o investimento. Porque o investimento tem uma centralidade, mas essa centralidade só existe porque ele tem códigos, e esses códigos ficam fechados a poucas pessoas, entendeu? Então, gostaria de trazer isso como um chamado, como parte da estratégia do que a gente precisa avançar.
So Adriana mentioned that she's hopeful about the perspective of impact ecosystem here in Brazil, but she also put like a call to action for us and for our ecosystem that language matter. Translation should be something like common on our events, on our discussions, and if we want to make sure that diversity is a core value for us, we need to make sure that translations are in order. So Adriana mentioned that every document of COP30 and every website and all of that should have translation to include Black people, indigenous people, and all of the people that are not fluent in English and in the matter of inclusion in the language. So yeah, that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And Ricardo, you get the last word. So wrap it all up.
Yes, no, thank you very much again, all the Impact Alpha team, our guests, Victoria from Aliança. I have one also call to action, particularly for those from abroad looking at Brazil and wanting to be part of this global transformation that we need, specifically about Brazil. If you are looking for opportunities to innovate, to invest, you can find it here, I assure you. So I invite you to look properly and to talk with the right people, because you're gonna find it. If you can find it, get in contact with me or any of the guests. Let's build it together, but we need to do it. And my final message is everyone listening to and participating and watching it now or later on, it's important. Let's subscribe to the Impact Alpha and the Latin American newsletter, because it's really important to be informed. And I'm always at Aliança available to connect you with the Brazilian impact ecosystem. So thank you, everyone that's connected today.
Great. Thank you so much to all of you. Muito obrigado. And we will follow up, as Zulema said, there'll be a post. I think the chat has been very active. I'm sorry we didn't get to the questions, but that will give us ideas and launching points for future stories, which all of you can help us with by sending us your information, your deals, your funds, your projects, and we are so happy to be in community and in connection with all of you. So let's keep it going, and until next time, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye. Tchau,
Bye-bye.
pessoal.
Thank you. Tchau, tchau. Obrigada.